Just a little person, one person in a sea of many little people who are not aware of me. I do my little job and live my little life, eat my little meals.
I remember waking up and it just felt different. I didn't feel like I felt like I was sick, but I wasn't really sick. You know that feeling where you just feel like something is off, right? And I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth, and I remember I couldn't squeeze my toothbrush. And it wasn't even a squeeze toothbrush. It was one of those pumps that were cool back in the 80s where you pressed the little button and the toothpaste came out. I couldn't push it down. And I had to have my mom, and that's when it began. And then I remember falling. I kept falling. I'd be walking, thought maybe I was just clumsy, but my legs would just give out, and I'd fall. And I remember we didn't think much of it, but it grew, it got bigger. And it got bigger, and it got to the point where I remember my dad used to be out of town a lot, and I had to have him push my toothpaste button. And he was like, "What is this? Why is this? What's going on here?" And my mom was like, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on." So I started going to the doctors regularly. They weren't sure what was going on, and I had to do a CAT scan, and they did a spinal tap, which really hurt. And I remember I had a friend named Joanne, and her mother was a saint, and my mother was up in arms because she didn't know what was going on with her son, and she was just really scared, and it was hard for her to get from appointment to appointment without freaking out. So Joanne, her mom, Hasuk, started driving my mom from appointment to appointment, and I'm always grateful for that. So Joanne, if you ever listen to this, I'll never forget your mom. She was a hero. Anyway, I remember the day I was admitted into the hospital. It was August 3rd. I was admitted into the hospital because and then I remember the last moment where I was on my feet, where they were asking me to walk to my mom from one side of from the side of the bed to the window of the hospital room, and I couldn't do it. And then I remember going. They put me in the bed, and that was about all she wrote about that. I remember my mom being scared, my grandparents being scared. Yeah, my mom, my maternal grandparents who were there, and I just remember being looked over by doctors, and I remember all the physical therapy that I went through, and I think physical therapy was a lot more archaic back then, because I remember my muscles were as tight as rubber bands. Right? And so the physical therapist, his name was Lyle. We used to call him Lyle the crocodile. And he would be, "Hey, let's just lift your leg over your head." And I would scream. I would scream so loud that people on the floors below, or at least one of the floors below, actually came up to our room and was like, Is everything okay? I remember that specifically. And people I was diagnosed with Guillain Barré Syndrome, which, as all of you know, that's something that's been with me most of my life since I was 7. And I remember I'd have my friend I didn't have a lot of friends back then, but I remember having, when my friends did come, my back would have to be faced to them, and I'd have to, I couldn't look at them, because the thing is, they were afraid that if they brought in people, I'd get sicker. It all started with a cold. I was standing next to somebody, and I won't mention his name, but I remember specifically who it was, and I got his cold, and and it just snowballed. And I've blamed this person since I was 7 years old. And I think about, I always wonder if I could have played sports. I always talk about how I hate sports, but the thing is, my parents placed me in soccer and football, and I remember feeling miserably at both. I remember when I was in soccer, I talked to the other team's goalie, right? It was not pretty. But yeah, I always wonder if I would be the person that I am today. And the thing is, would I have would I be as easily intimidated and scared of people leaving me? Esther and I, the other day, Esther Marcel and I talked about, she was like, who left you? Who left you? And the thing is, in my head, everybody leaves me. Everybody. When I was in the hospital, everybody would always have to leave at the end of the day, I remember when my mom would get angry, she would leave. It hurts. It sucked. It hurt. It still hurts. I mean, I'm not blaming her. This isn't meant to blame anybody. I remember just laying there, and I made this ragtag group of friends, and all of us were messed up in our own ways. I had a friend named Jerry, and he had cerebral palsy, and then there was a guy named Bill who was a friend of mine, really nice guy. He was in a wheelchair. I think he was I don't remember if he was quadriplegic or paraplegic. It's been so long, but really nice guy, nicest guy in the world. And then I found out later on that the reason he was in the wheelchair was because his wife shot him because he was an abusive piece of shit. Because he would beat her. But yeah, so that was cool. It's good to make friends. But yeah, I remember they'd have like Mexican Day at the hospital, and all kinds of things. I was on the news at one point because there was a huge outbreak of Guillain Barré Syndrome that year. Quite a few people in, I think, Omaha got it. Most of the people had to wear trachs in their throat. I did not. I was a swimmer beforehand, and I built up my lung capacity to the point where I didn't need to do that. I need to wear one of those. That, rock on there. Take your victories when you can get them. But I just remember being extremely lonely. And this is not meant to be a woe is me tale, but maybe it is. I don't know. I think it's okay to be sad every so often, wonder what could have been, It's okay. This is human nature, people. We want to know what if we just, maybe if I had taken 2 steps away from the person that had been sick, would I even be here right now? I mean, could there have been some other trajectory where I could have, I could be dead or something, But, would I have become a drug addict or an alcoholic? I don't know. I don't think so, because I think I would have become more confident without, all the shit that went down when I was 7, and has kind of put, reigned over my life. I mean, like I said, it's I have an amazing life, and I have no complaints. But still, there's always that little part of me that's like, what might have happened? What could have been different? But I will say this: I remember when I was finally able to get back to school. I had this I had this amazing tutor. Her name is Linda, and I remember, and she remains very close to me. And I remember when this was during like the Bush senior election, and that was when she started teaching me in the hospital. Trying to keep me up to speed with my studies. And I remember she was so upset about turning 40, and now it's 30 years later, So, yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy. I mean, time flies, man. And the thing is, I still wear braces, and I can walk now. That's, I've had many surgeries. But I also want to talk about a friend of mine. Like when I got back to school, when I finally was able to get back to school, I had this friend named Jenny Jo, and she was like my only friend. Like my gal, she was my best friend in the whole wide world, and her mom was awesome, and her sister Melissa was awesome, and I just remember just playing Nintendo, and we'd use her Game Genie and stuff like that. And I remember that. I remember so many good memories with her and her mom, Mary Jo. Man, life really throws us some shitty hands. And I think she'd agree with me on that. But yeah, I was never picked on in school, not really. I was definitely not popular, but I was kind of in that middle ground where like people left me alone, but I wasn't like, I didn't have girlfriends or anything like that. I had my own friends that I loved and still love to this day. I don't talk to them, but I still love them. Derek, if you're listening to this, you're probably, and Russ, you're probably the last remaining ones of that group that I still talk to. And I'm sorry, Russ, that I don't talk to you as often. But anyway, getting back to the topic, I've had a really interesting life. It's been a ride, and every day I'm grateful. I could be really upset and pissed off about everything that happened, but you know what? What's that? What's that gonna do? Things happen. Shit happens. And if you can't accept it, you got to learn to stand it. Good advice. I've never forgiven that person that was on the playground when I was at camp, Haverim. And I don't, and it's, and I, when we do a fourth step in my 12-step group, you gotta make a list, and of people that you have resentments against. And it's funny, I think I may have forgotten to put you on the list. And I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign, but I think it means I'm moving on. If I can forget the person that I was standing next to on the playground that gave me a cold that snowballed into what is now my life, if I can forget to put his name on that list, then maybe things are getting better. So, Eric, I won't give your last name out, but Eric, if you're listening to this, I forgive you. Because I have an amazing life. An amazing wife. I have a crazy dog. I have a house that I call home. I wish we had children. I haven't gotten to that point yet. We've had some pretty bad luck about that, as I've talked about in prior podcast episodes. I don't just forgive you, I say thank you. Because without you, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. And that is extremely hard for me to say, because it's really tough to be grateful for both the happiness and the chaos and the anger and the rage and sadness and loneliness and uselessness that I've felt throughout my whole life. It's hard to say thank you for that. But thank you. Because we only get this once. And so far, I think I'm doing pretty okay. Not perfect. I don't want perfection. Progress, not perfection. That's what we always say. But you know what? I'm here, and I'm alive, and I'm kicking ass one day at a time.
Just one step at a time, and closer to destiny. I knew at a glance there would always be a chance for me, with someone I could live for, nowhere I would rather be. Is your love strong enough? Like a rock in the sea, am I